Voice of Ash.
Hi folks, I'm Ash. In this video, I will show you a small project I did with a USB controller board. Now, if you are as old as I am, you tend to collect things which you don't need and you forget about it. So the other day I was cleaning up and I found this Teensy board. And by Teensy, I don't mean small. Teensy is a copyrighted name, I guess, by PJRC Electronics. And they've been making these boards for a long time. And I purchased this board in 2012 and forgot about it until now. So I put this board to work and I made a small pedestrian traffic light. Now, before I get into the project, let me clarify how a USB controller board is different than, say, Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is a full-fledged tiny computer. It does many things. It can do many things at the same time. However, boards like Teensy board or maybe even Arduino, they run only one program at a time, and that's it. When the board boots up, it loads up that program. It does this thing until you shut the board off. Okay, two lights. Pedestrian comes in, presses this button. The light goes amber for the car. Green for pedestrian, red for car. Blinking green. And that's it. Okay, so here is a wiring diagram. So as you know that there were two lights for the pedestrian. There was a button on the pedestrian side of the light, and there were three lights for the cars. So in this wiring diagram, we have two LEDs representing red and green for pedestrian, and there is a button, and then there are three LEDs for the car lights. Not much to it. Now, the process of controlling hardware using the software is no different than creating a data-driven web page, where a user's actions enable or disable buttons and other controls. Since web forms typically have a lot more controls, we use a very popular design pattern called MVC, or Model View Controller. We control the state of the buttons and other form controls using a data object. So, for example, we may have a Boolean field which will say button enabled, which carries a value of true or false. And if it's true, the button is enabled. If it's false, the button is disabled. This enabling and disabling is typically done with some kind of a framework which is running behind the scene, like Angular or React. The controller handles the events or the interrupts to this flow and modifies the model, and once the model is modified, the view is automatically adjusted by the framework behind the scene. In our case, I would call our design pattern as just view and controller, because controller is directly modifying the view. The view in our case is the state of LEDs, etc. So let's talk about our states or stages in this operation. When the board boots up, obviously is going to go into a state. So I made the decision that it has to be a state which is happening for most of the time, which is green light for the car and red light for the pedestrian. The second state is when the pedestrian comes in, presses the button. Obviously, we have to give the car some time to pass through. So it would be amber light for the car. And the third state would be green light for the pedestrian and red light for the cars. And after certain seconds, we want to turn that into a blinking green for the pedestrians, giving them some time to clear the pedestrian crossing. And after that, we go back to green light for the car. Okay, so here's the code. I use Arduino IDE to develop this code. The language is C. So this IDE basically expects you to write setup and loop functions other than rest of the code. The setup function is executed when the board boots up. This is where you marry the hardware with the software telling the code as to which pin is connected to button or the LED and so on. This will be the place where you will also establish the interrupts as to what happens when the button is pressed. And in the loop function, you handle the different states. So what happens when the button is pressed, you have to switch the state from, let's say, green to amber and so on. And obviously, this is a perpetual loop which goes on forever until the board is shut down. So that's it, folks. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please pass it on to your friends. Hope they find it useful. You don't have to subscribe to my channel or like this video, etc., etc. I hope I bring in more useful videos like this in future, and see you next time.